And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today I want to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, and that's the game Heroscape. You can see this set up here in front of me. Heroscape is just absolutely lots of fun. But when I first heard about it, I kind of didn't really think about that it would be a game I wanted to play, and I can see many people passing it over for a variety of reasons. One is when you go to the stores, initially it was at Toys R Us and Walmart, it's in hobby stores now too, but when people saw it, it looks like a big toy. You have little plastic miniatures moving around the board, and that looks like a toy to many people, and so that might have turned some people off, maybe for kids. And other people may have been turned off because it looks like a miniatures game. And we know that miniatures games have long and complicated rules and such, and I don't want to get into those. And I can understand that, but Heroscape is not. Heroscape is a game that I think works well. I can play it with children, I can play it with teenagers, I can play it with other adults, and it is an absolute blast. Now, there are a few problems with the game itself, about the game, not with the game. I think the game itself is close to perfection, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But first of all, how do you get Heroscape? Well, currently in the stores, there are two versions of Heroscape that you can buy. Heroscape, this is the Swarm of the Marrow Master Set, and then I have Heroscape, this one just came out, Dungeons & Dragons Heroscape. And this is called the Battle for the Underdark. There was two other master sets, and you probably can find them if you look hard enough. They're certainly on eBay. There's the original master set that came out, the Battle for Valhalla, and then there was the Marvel set that came out with Marvel characters. And those were 4 master sets. Now, each master set comes with a lot of terrain and several characters that you can fight with, and especially in the case of the original set, was perfectly fun. The main set here, the Marrow set, if you can get a hold of this one, this is probably the best starting point. This Dungeons & Dragons is pretty good, but you almost need to buy 2 of these to be able to have enough terrain for any kind of battle, and I usually find it's best with a bunch of sets together. But there was more than that Heroscape came out with. They came out with a set of volcano terrain. They came out with a set of ice terrain, of jungle terrain, of castle walls. And you could put all that together and mix and match. They came out with new characters that you could buy. Never randomized. You knew exactly what you were getting. And it's just amazing. The theme of Heroscape is this. You are basically fighting... okay, forget the theme that the storylines have in there. Basically, you're fighting with people across time and space. So on one side, you might have werewolves and people from the Revolutionary War, American Revolutionary War. On the other side, you have futuristic robots and zombies. And there's fantasy mixed with robots, mixed with real-life heroes. Spartacus is in the game. Cowboys are in the game. Dwarves are in the game, and they're all fighting each other across a map, and it's just a blast. But let's talk about Heroscape and some of the reasons I like it. First of all, the terrain pieces themselves are very durable. So I put them to the ultimate test. Can kids play with them and get away with it? And so I've had my kids chew on them, play with them, all sorts of things, and as you can see, the pieces themselves are quite baby-proof. Let's try another durability test. As you can see, it seems like nothing phases these pieces. Terrain is a big factor in Heroscape, and it's a really absolutely amazing type of terrain. There's several different shapes, but the basic shapes are this funky looking L shape, a hexagon, a triangle, a double, and a single. And you use these usually to build your terrain feature any way that you want to. There's maps in the book, but the terrain itself, if you look at it on the sides, basically you can slide these terrain together and then they lock. I mean, it's not super strong and they're easy to get apart, but they're strong enough that they're not going to move apart from one another. And so you can take terrain and you can just lock it together and build yourself a battlefield. But the terrain also stacks. So when I put terrain here, I'm basically building a three-dimensional a city or a three-dimensional battlefield any way I want to. There's different types of terrain that are included throughout the game in various expansions. You have grass, you have road, you have swamp, you have streets and paving, you have inside, you have stone, you have sand, you have ice, you have like lava almost type terrain. There's even flat terrains which you have shadows, actually boiling lava, swamp water, regular water, ice. There's three-dimensional objects like icebergs. You have jungle trees that you can place on the board. There are regular rocks. There are walls. There are castle walls. There are trees that can be built. And all of this together really leaves you to your imagination to build just anything that you want to. Now, like I said, there are scenarios in the book, but there are also many scenarios that you can find online, which I think are much superior to the book. And again, you can make anything you want, but look at some of these scenarios that you can find online. So here we have the finished product, and you can see that between my daughter and I, we managed to get it together fairly quickly. We had all the pieces sorted out, easy to discover. Now this is the exact one that we found on the internet, but usually when I build them, then I add in my own things. For example, this doesn't have any jungle or ice or swamp terrain, and usually I don't want to throw all those into the mix, but maybe I want to add more. Maybe I'd add a whole other section over here. Maybe I'd make a tower taller. I don't always put the glyphs where they tell me to put them either, or exactly what glyphs. You're not tied to these scenarios, but again, it's still something that's better than anything that I could do. And so I'm very, impressed with the ability that people have on the internet to put these terrains together. And they're a lot of fun to play on. This leads us to the game's only real problem when talking about the terrain. And that's simply storing it. I mean, the box comes like this, and you have to snap it all together and fit it back in a box. That just doesn't work. So how do we end up storing it? One solution is to throw everything just into a giant bin, but I don't find that's very handy. So what I've done personally is I've taken different small Tupperware containers and put the different pieces in each one. So you can see here I have all my snow in there, all my sand in that one. The bigger hexagons, they get stored separately in a bigger box, but I put the different kinds of pieces into different boxes. And that's well and good, it works for me, but you do have to realize that Heroscape will take up a lot of room. Even if you buy just a few of the smaller sets, you're still going to have to take up a lot of room, and this doesn't even include the characters. And hey, characters. In fact, I haven't even told you how to play the game yet. Well, that's coming up in part 2.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.